Hello YouTube, it's Borders Dude and I'm back with a video review, and it's a double bill this time because I am going to take a look at 2 packs. That's two packs from the Dr.Wu series. Now these are scaled to the world's smallest Transformers, and they've been gathering a lot of steam within the community lately, so I'm wanting to see what the hype is. So I'll be looking at Big Surge and Intelligence Officer, which is of course Beachcomber and Soundwave, and I will also be looking at Propel and Elegy, which is their Conehead take on Ramjet and Dirge. And here are the figures out the packaging. Now each figure does come with its own collector card, and the collector cards are made of a rather shiny material. I say shiny, it's more like a vinyl-y feel. It's that strange type of plastic. It's not really cardboard, but it's nice. It differentiates them from other sort of collector cards you get with, you know, these sort of third-party figures. And you know, you can get the stats at the back on each one. Obviously they're in, I'm guessing it's Chinese language. Very cool, but it does also give you a little bit of garb on the figure at the bottom of the card itself. The art is just taken directly from the boxes, but the art is really nice. It's one of the highlights of the figures, that they pack in so much design in these small boxes. And there's lastly, there is Dirge or Elegy, whatever you want to call them. And it gives you a nice sort of preview of what you're going to get when you transform these figures. So we'll take a look at each figure in their alt mode first of all. Now here is their version of Soundwave, and he's probably one of the easiest and probably most third-party figures that we have seen in terms of, you know, who they tackle. Probably because he's really just a bit of a box, really, isn't he? But he's done really well in this dinky form. I do love the sort of glittery paint effect they have put on his tape deck there. And that's quite unique. You don't see that on really any other Soundwave figures. And unfortunately you can see it's quite easily scratched as well, this silver paint they have there. So it's something to be mindful of when you do have that figure, and something to be careful with. And there's all his robot gubbins stuffed at the back, but you also get a little bit of weapon storage there for his shoulder cannon, which is a really nice touch for a figure of this size. And a little Beachcomber now. His alt mode, I don't know, it doesn't seem to have came off as well. I do like how you can get a little Autobot logo there on the front if you wish. I mean, it's very dinky, and really does it work? I'm not sure. I'm kind of on the fence on it. There's very little paint on this version of Beachcomber here. I think the majority of the paint was definitely used on Soundwave in terms of the budget anyway. But again, there's that silver there that can be easily scratched, but it's a nice little touch there, and does definitely try and break up the coloured plastic on the mould. Yeah, at the back, yeah, you can basically see that he's just folded up his legs. Again, you're not going to get an exactly a complicated transformation on figures of this size, so that's definitely be expected. Yeah, the alt mode on Beachcomber is definitely very weak, I would say. Now onto the Coneheads. We'll start with their version of Thrust. Now these guys really did impress me, and there's a ton of sculpted detail going on in these figures. You can see that when the light hits it. Really nicely done. Again, not much paint going on here. A lot of it is just coloured plastic, but I suppose it certainly helps keep the prices down. And when you're getting 2 figures of this size for, you know, under £25 in some cases, you can see where they've cut costs. But you don't really get many 2 packs of figures these days, no matter what size, like you used to get in the good old days. Again, you can really see where his inner robot parts are going to be. I'm really pleased to see that they captured the design of Thrust in this small form. It's really cool to see, really like it. And lastly, let's take a look at Dirge. Now he's my favourite out of the 2 Coneheads, and Thrust is generally my favourite Conehead, but this mould really steals it. I think what I like about the Conehead figures is their wings are all different, so it gives them a unique design, whereas the Seekers, you know, they're all the same, they're all that fighter jet mould. And it just really works well. Again, it's mostly coloured plastic, very little paint apps. You know, you've got the dark silver there on the cockpit, and you've got a bit of paint there on the back, just sort of mimicking, I guess, really the grey plastic. But it's really cool, and again, it doesn't exactly clean up any better than Thrust underneath. But this one, out of all four, really is my favourite so far. And it's time to take a look at each figure's robot mode. Now, we take a look at Soundwave. We can remove that because it's blocking the light to his face. It's a really nice face sculpt for a figure of that size. There's a lot of detail going on there. Again, they've used that silver paint that is quite scratchable. But, you know, that's definitely recognisable as Soundwave. Pop back on his shoulder cannon. None of the Dr.Wu figures tend to come with a gun unless it's, you know, part of their design, such as the Seekers, for example. This is why Soundwave doesn't have his blaster. And even Beachcomber. But to be honest, the G1 original Beachcomber didn't come with a gun. Anyway, but looking at this figure, it's very clean. But again, this is Soundwave, so it is just a box, so it's easy to make this figure look quite clean. Although it does look like he's wearing a pair of socks there with his pure white ball joint. Not much going on at the back, a couple of screws, and some of that detail that you would see in alt mode. In terms of his articulation, it's mostly ball joints. Now the shoulder is on a ball joint, so it will do a 360, but you also get a little outward motion there. You get a single bend at the elbow. Now you can see that's a bit wobbly there, but that's part of the transformation, but you can get it to bend quite nicely. He does have a waist swivel, surprisingly, and this is all due to part of the transformation. When it comes to the leg, again, it's on a ball joint, so it'll go back and forward as you would expect, and out. And with the feet being on a ball joint, you can get the full ankle tilt-esque ability. And it's Beachcomber's turn. Let's have a wee look at this guy here. Now again, very plain in both modes, unfortunately. Beachcomber does, you know, certainly have a bit of a plain robot mode, but this is just really lacking paint everywhere. The yellow dots in the rather sad looking face that he has is not what we'd expect to see on a Beachcomber figure. He's quite disappointing, to be honest, out of all of them. He really does disappoint me. Again, with the articulation, it's very much the same. Ball joint on the shoulder, single bend at the elbow, the legs are on the ball joint, and a single bend at the knee. You can always argue that with figures this small, they're going to have very limited articulation, and that's certainly true, but I think they could have done just a little bit more with this figure. And again, nothing much going on at the back there. And it's now Conehead time, so we'll start off with Thrust, because as I've mentioned, he is my favourite of the Conehead figures, although Dirge is the better one here. I love the little screaming face they've got and the paint they've applied to the eyes. Now what I will say is there is 2 years apart between the Seeker set here, the Conehead set rather, and both Soundwave and Beachcomber. So I think you can see a lot of improvement has taken place over those past 2 years in terms of what they do with these figures, how they look and how they feel. Transformation instructions do show you to have the fins like that, but I always just like them to stick out because I think that looks a lot better in robot mode. Again, you're not getting much paint on these figures as you would expect. Just a few paint apps here with the silver air turbines, I guess, and the orange on his cockpit. Now, articulation with these guys, again, that hasn't changed really, it's much the same. The shoulder, and we'll remove his lock cannon, the shoulder is on a ball joint, the elbow does have a ball joint this time, so it gives a bit more posability options. The legs, again, they are also on a ball joint, but they are hampered just by the wings and also the little crotch piece there. That makes up the front of the Seeker's chest. This boy is very hard to film because he's mostly all black in a lot of parts. But I like the design of this figure, and I think it tidies up quite nicely at the back as well, and you're getting a bit more detail because of that alt mode, which was full of the detail. Really do like this Seeker mould. Sorry, Conehead mould. Time to take a look at my favourite of the four, and that is, of course, and obviously, Dirge. Now this is a really lovely figure. I love the grey and how it's all sort of working together. Again, the cockpit has a nice bit of silver paint there, which is a lovely touch. One thing I did forget to mention, and they all share this because they are the same mould, you do get a little bit of toe articulation, but the articulation is exactly, easy for me to say, the same as it is with thrust. But again, there's so much more detail going on these figures as opposed to the very first or early releases that we've seen from Dr.Wu, so they've definitely improved. And again, it all cleans up very nice at the back, which is very impressive for figures of this scale. Okay, let's do the size comparison test. Now, it's easy for me to say on camera that these figures are very small. They are really scaled with the world's smallest Transformers, but you need something to give you a sense of idea of how small these figures really are. So there we are with a G1 Micromaster. I mean, you can see he's very much the same size as Soundwave. We've also got the Core Class Soundwave here. Again, which probably gives you a better idea in a more modern term scale. And for some Ultra Magnus comparisons, there he is with the best part of the X-Transbots Ultra Magnus, the only human version, and something a bit more obscure in my collection is the Hero Toys world's smallest Delta Magnus. Probably the only Delta Magnus I'll ever get. But there you go, that gives you an idea in terms of what you're dealing with in a sense of scale with these figures. I have had these figures now for a couple of weeks in the case of the Coneheads, and what still plays in my mind is, who are these figures really aimed at in the Transformers collector market? They don't sit in any scale with the current third-party output, even the New Age figures, which are the smallest of the Legends scale. They're even smaller than that. They're more geared towards people who maybe wish to expand on the world's smallest Transformers collection. Sure, they are releasing figures that were already made in that collection, but aside from that, and maybe people who want to use them in their Titans bases or those smaller bases that we got with the modular Transformers, I don't really see another market for them. That being said, they do tend to sell out very quickly on Show Z, so there's definitely a growing fan base for figures this size. For me personally, I'm not sure if I will continue to buy them. I am definitely getting the Ultra Magnus figure because of course he is Ultra Magnus. But aside from that, the figures themselves do come across as very much a novelty, very much a small boutique item. But my opinion may change, as it has been known to change. They have impressed me for what they are, but it's not something I'm really clambering to get my hands on. Thank you very much for watching this video, and what do you think about these world's smallest-esque Transformer figures from Dr.Wu? Let me know in the comments section below, and I will see you again soon with another video.